And welcome! You're here in Manifesting Your Dreams with Pablo Miguel from Las Vegas. It's a beautiful day today, a little warm, but if you're visiting us for the first time, we've been doing this every week where the goal is to go over this book, Think and Grow Rich. If you ever read this book, you know what we're talking about. If you haven't, this is a book that not only you want to have, you probably want to gift it if you have your son, your daughter, your grandkids. And the idea is to go over a chapter of the book every single week. Napoleon Hill discovered 17 principles that all successful people have in common. So this week we're covering imagination, okay? Imagination. And we're very excited because we have a very unusual guest with us today. And actually I met Kim Simsby 24 years ago on the launch of a TV network that it was actually very coincidentally related to personal development. And this was before the people used to have the dishes in their homes and so forth. And as the world turns around, he lives in beautiful Carlsbad with his family. He's visiting Las Vegas for a concert, and I'm so excited that he actually could set up the time to be with us here today and share some of his experience, because if there's one person that I really know that have lived these principles and have manifested his dreams, that is Kim Simsby from Denmark. So Kim, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for taking the time and being with us today. And I know you have a lot of value to provide to our audience. So why don't you take just a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, so they get to know you a little better.
Sure. Well, thank you, Pablo. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. You're absolutely correct. You know, I'm kind of smiling a little bit when I'm looking at this book, because your version of it almost looks as used as mine. And the reason I say almost, when I first learned of Think and Grow Rich, as you said, I'm actually originally born and raised in Copenhagen, Denmark. I moved to the U.S. in the mid-1980s at a ripe old age of 25 years old, and I'd never been exposed to any of this sort of information before. But, you know, through a bunch of coincidences or whatever, I ended up being introduced to Think and Grow Rich, and as a matter of fact, also The Laws of Success, which is the leather-bound book that this is more of a summary of.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
That goes through all the lessons and all that.
And that's a little bit.
Yeah, and you're correct. It's had a huge impact on my life in many different ways. And I remember in my younger days, I was so passionate about this that when I used to do trainings, I've been around the direct marketing industry most of my time here in the U.S. Prior to that, I came out of the corporate world, worked in marketing and management with several Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies back in Europe. But I remember when I used to do trainings in the direct marketing industry, I would literally almost preach this book to the point that one year for my birthday, two very good friends of mine, at that time, you know, we were all young kids, they had actually found the first edition from 1937 at a garage sale. They bought it for 50 cents. Can you believe that?
No way.
And they gave that to me for my birthday.
Oh
So,
my God, that's amazing.
yeah, it's been a big part of my life for, you know, a lot of years now. And I know one of the things that you and I talked about was the power of imagination, the power of visualizing, of having your goals, very concrete and specific goals, and writing.
Exactly.
And that's been pretty amazing for me throughout the years. And I remember a couple of things, you know, just to give you some specifics.
Absolutely.
As I was learning all the things in Think and Grow Rich, I was sitting at a seminar where the speaker, the trainer, was basically teaching people, you know, how to set goals and the importance of it and what have you, right? And I think a lot of times people, they hear the importance of it, but they don't do it.
Exactly.
Or maybe they've tried to do it a few times and it hadn't quite worked out the way they wanted to, so they give up on it.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is still, you know, we used to call it the 80-20 rule. 20% of people make 80% of the money. Nowadays, it's probably more like a 90-10 rule.
Isn't that amazing? That was actually changed. Like,
if you look at the movement of wealth, right? The good news is you as an individual, you really have the power of choice. You decide whether you want to be the 10% making 90% of the wealth, or the 90% making 10% of the wealth. And I'm not saying that having goals is the only thing that is required, but in my opinion, that's where it all starts. And a lot of times when I've done trainings and I ask people, quite bluntly, I just say, you know, this is obviously not the first time you're hearing this, right? People have read books, they've listened to
absolutely
the old days, cassette tapes, remember
cassette
that?
tapes, I still have them, okay?
And then CDs, and now it's all downloads or whatever, right? So you've heard this many times before. And I asked them, I said, well, why are you not doing it? And they said, because if they don't reach their goal, then they feel like a failure.
Right.
And I'm like, well, let's address that for a minute, because the example that I like to use is the purpose of setting goals really lies not in achieving the goal. It is what it makes of you in the pursuit of it. You know, a lot of times that fancy car that you were dreaming about and you're so excited when you finally get to drive it home, 6 months later it's just another car. You know, you've had this dream house on the top of the hill for years and years and years, and you've been watching that since you were a teenager. You finally have your measure of success and you get to go buy your dream home. A year later, it's just another place to live.
Exactly.
Right? So those, and I know some people say, just get me to that point and I'll worry about the rest later.
Yeah. They deal with the consequences, right?
But it's really the journey itself that shapes the individual, and that's the power of goals. Another example that I like to use is, remember when we used to have the space shuttle program here in the U.S., and I understand they're going to start that up again. Did you know that when that rocket takes off from Earth on its way to the moon, that 97 some odd % of that journey, that spacecraft is actually off track.
97, wow.
It's constant plan, do, review, plan, do, review. You know, it's interesting because I did this particular training at a live event in Massachusetts years ago. And we actually happened to have a rocket science in the audience. And I used to say it's over 90%, and he corrected me.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
like 97, 98 or something like that, right? The point is that, or I guess the more important part of that whole statement is, well, what if they hadn't had a target to start with? We would have pretty much lost every space shuttle in history. Right?
Absolutely. Let's see. Hopefully it makes it, right?
And it's exactly the same with your business or your life or whatever it is that you're trying to improve on. If you don't know where you're going, every road is going to take you there. And that's exactly what's happening to the masses. And that's why so many people are running around like a rat in a wheel, because they don't have that force that's pulling them based on a goal, based on a dream, and that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
So, I know I started out by saying I got a couple of specific examples.
We'll have a couple of more segments coming up, but it's so interesting. We have David Easterbrooks, actually. If you haven't seen his interview, you want to go back, David Easterbrooks, and we cover definiteness of purpose with him, right?
Yeah.
And the reason he was able to build such a successful and a large business, actually working with you, were so many other people that started at the same time that he did, right? Over the same period of time did it. And that's exactly what you're saying, is the ability to set up a very clearly defined goal. And whether it is failure or success, and I remember you told me this one time, I was having some issues, I was talking to you years ago, and you said to me, Pablo, that's a temporary, I was coming up with a big problem, right? Like, look at what happened to me, right? Like all of us go through, like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened to me. And you corrected my word, and you say, Pablo, that's a temporary inconvenience, right? And I went like, no, this is a big F problem, right, in my head. But you said, that's a temporary inconvenience. And then I stopped on my tracks with amazement, because the way you define it, I said, you know what? Number one, this is an inconvenience, right? Although I wasn't calling it like that, but it's also temporary, right? And then I opened up my eyes and said, you know, it totally changed my energy, right? And if you label, like whether you are in sales or whether you're looking for, the partner for the rest of your life, or you want to educate your kids or whatever, and things don't go your way, you can reframe that into a learning experience, right? Into just the fact that you took action that was successful, because that's what most people don't do, right?
Right.
So it is amazing. I really admire how you use that power of vocabulary, right? And having a clear goal is where you have to start and then go for it, right? And we'll go over in the next segments. We're going to go over into some of your incredible stories as far as the things that you were able to manifest. And the other thing that you mentioned about people reading the book or having the book is like so many people say, I have that book. You know what that means when they say, I have that book? They haven't read it, right? Because they could have said, I read that book, but they say, oh, I have that book. It's like I have a collection of books, right? Or other people said, I read it, right? And this is a book, like, it's not just about reading it. It's not like a movie.
Absolutely.
So you go, oh, I saw that movie. This is something you actually get to experience.
It's actually out as a movie now. It
is. Well, I didn't even know that. Oh, okay, you know what? I saw it like a trailer like a year ago. So that actually came out already. Yeah. Oh, wow. So we're gonna watch the movie, right? So we're a little bit out of time. So we're gonna come back in a minute or so. But if you'd like to stay in contact with us, go to www.manifestingyourdreams.net, N-E-T, manifestingyourdreams.net, and put your email there, and we're actually going to send you a PDF document with 5 key things you can do to start on the process of manifesting your dreams. If this is the first time that you're here, if you just join us, we're going to get back, and we have Kim Simsby here from Copenhagen. Congratulations on Denmark actually qualifying into the World Cup.
That's a big deal.
Uruguay qualified too. So this is a huge event, and we're so glad that you're visiting here with us from Carlsbad. So we're gonna be right back. Don't go anywhere. Manifesting your dreams. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Glenn Alex, and I am inviting you to watch Pablo Miguel's Manifesting Your Dreams every Monday at 3 p.m. on socialmediashows.com. You won't regret it.
Listen, check it. Try to build a bridge, instead I burned it down. Down to the ground. I was too weak to face my pain. Caught up in the flood that was my rain. We both moved on, but my heart remains there. Oh, what I put you through.
Social media shows
is about branding, opportunity,
and outreach.
We are an entertainment company that empowers others
by promoting and supporting our community and everyone who reaches our content.
Here on social media shows,
here we're a family.
We are family.
We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, sing.
We are family.
We are family.
We are family. We are family.
We are family.
We are family, and we want you to be part of our social media shows family.
And welcome back. We're here having so much fun with Kim. It's been a long time since we got together, and we're very, very grateful. He's here actually on vacation, spending some time with his wife, and we were able to snuggle him for an hour so you could get some valuable content, some ideas, so hopefully you can also manifest your dreams. But Kim is a person that I have a deep admiration over a couple of decades now, because he's somebody that has been able to set goals, whether they were in business, whether in travel, relationships, even fun. He's very, very self-directed and goal-motivated, and has been able to manifest businesses doing multi-million dollars all over the world. Happily married now, and he was sharing last night a little bit about how that relationship came into play. So he's somebody that you can learn from, and we like you to get some tips, some strategies, and some inspiration so you could actually go and manifest your dreams. So Kim, welcome to our show, and we're very, very grateful that you can share some stories with us. Why don't you share with our viewers a couple of occasions where you use your imagination, goal setting, and things that you wanted actually got manifested eventually? I'm sure you have a couple of good stories like that, right?
I don't know if they're good, but I think they're good. They certainly.
We'll see what they say, right?
They certainly have been pretty profound in my life, and a lot of times success in anything really starts with making a decision. And I, as simple as that sounds, it's kind of like drawing that line in the sand. Now, that doesn't mean that people that are successful, that they haven't had challenges. Pretty much anybody that I know of that have ever had success, I always tell people, I said, the only difference between you sitting there taking notes and me talking to you is because I've had more notes than you have. I've had more people, either more disappointments or whatever, but you keep going. What is it that keeps you going? It's when you have that clear vision of why you're doing what you're doing, right? And if we're talking specifically about business, a lot of times your success will be in direct proportion to your leadership abilities, right? Well, how are you going to lead others if you don't know where you're going? It's kind of like you decide to get involved with a new venture, and you go, hey, John, where are we going? And John says, well, I don't know, follow me. That's not a really good plan, right?
No, I don't think I would follow like that, right?
So the more you start looking into not just, hey, I got to put my goals in writing and that's about it. The more you really start to understand how it goes to work on your subconscious mind, the more you start to realize the power of it. And I remember I was sitting at a training seminar many, many years ago, and the individual that was doing this particular segment, he said, went through all the stuff that we're talking about, the importance of setting goals and the importance of putting timelines on it, and making it very specific, and it's not just about money. I mean, it can certainly be money, it can be success in business, but it's also your health, it's your relationships, it's your spiritual life, other areas that you want to improve on. And then he also said that once you've kind of committed your dreams and goals to paper, then go out and create a vision board. And I'm one of these crazy people, Pablo, that I've learned to follow successful people, and I've done my best to stay away from unsuccessful people, what they're doing, right?
That's a good idea. That's a good idea to begin with, right?
So when the guy is doing it, he says, this is what you should go do. I actually went and did it.
You went and did it, right?
So nowadays, and I'm not telling you something you probably don't already know, you got all these fancy software programs, and you can go in and make these things look real good with put pictures, of what you'd like your life to look like. Back then, I just went out and got a cardboard and some magazines, and I started, cutting and pasting and that kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
And growing up in Europe, my dad was a BMW guy.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
Growing up around that, I became a BMW guy, right? And so that was like one of my dreams. That
you wanted to get
that one day I was going to get my BMW.
All right.
And so I remember going back, and I was making this vision board, and I got a picture of a BMW, put it right smack in the middle of my vision board with a bunch of other things, of what I would like to accomplish in my life. And then as I had moved over the years, I'd actually lost track of this particular, it was just an 8.5 by 11.
Okay.
And I'd gotten started with a business that within a couple of years I achieved, by most people's standards, a pretty high level of success. And I just bought my new house, and I'm sitting there on the floor waiting for the furniture to be delivered. And obviously I was excited, I was proud, I felt very accomplished. At the time I was single, so I had this bachelor pad with the pool and
nice.
The whole 9 yards, right? And then I'm sitting there and going like, I need a new car to put in the garage, right?
You have the garage now,
Yeah.
and we need to fill it up, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm really dating myself because this is way back when BMW, they had just changed their body style from like the old square style to the new sleek one. Right?
Okay.
And I had my eyes set on this BMW 5 Series. I just thought that was the sweetest thing I'd ever seen, right? So I go down to the dealership and, talk to the sales guy. We get in the car, we're driving around, and he's asking me what I do. And I told him, he says, well, if money is not a big issue, he says, you really should try the 7 Series. And I'm like, I got time, so let's do it. Right? Drove back to the car lot, put me in a 7 Series, and driving out, we're just on the road there. And now I got to be the first to admit that these days, I'm not into material things. I mean, it's like been there, done that. But I got to tell you, back then, within 30 seconds of driving down the road, I had a spiritual experience. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those things. So needless to say, after they took me into the confession chamber where you get to confess all your sins before they'll let you buy the car, right? I ended up driving out of there as a happy owner of a BMW 745.
Wow.
Right? Now, here's the reason I'm telling you that story. About a week or 2 weeks later, I'm unpacking all my stuff in my new house. And at the bottom of one of these boxes, I find my old vision board.
No way.
Treasure map. And I probably hadn't looked at it in about 10 or 12 years at the time.
Wow.
Right? I didn't know what had happened to it. And there was a picture of a BMW in the middle of that vision board. So the big question is, do you think that picture was of a BMW 5 Series or of a 7 Series? It was obviously a 7 Series. I'd already put in the order. It was just delayed delivery.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying?
That's impressive.
I mean, it's for me, when I found that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff really works. Right?
Absolutely.
Now, I had seen it throughout my years in kind of small areas, but that had a huge impact on me.
Well, it was very concrete. I mean, that's something like
absolutely
very concrete, very much on your face.
Absolutely, yeah.
And one of the things that people don't realize is that every single thought we have is creative. It's not just a few, right? It's not like 5 minutes that I sit down. It's every single thought we have is creative, and every single thought we have actually gets imprinted in our subconscious mind, and it's always going to be there. It just needs us to consciously retrieve it, or sometimes things just happen in a way that even today we can understand. I mean, this book was written like almost 100 years ago, and even today we still can understand those things, but that doesn't make them any more valuable or any more true, right? That's
absolutely
fantastic. So my recommendation to you is, if you don't have a vision board yet, right? Why not, right? Why not? Just get a few pictures together. And the idea is also have it close to you. Right now, you could actually have a vision board, put it on a digital form, and put it in your smartphone.
Absolutely.
So every time you get a phone call, it's right there. Even if you're not paying attention, it's getting to your subconscious life. That's a fantastic story. Fantastic story. And we had a guest a couple of weeks ago, Jeff Ashby, where actually this guy had his vision board in a full wall. In the full wall, and that's incredible. It's just like, but there's something that we have to have it somehow, right?
Absolutely.
You have to decide on what you want. And the other thing, like you mentioned, is like we don't know the time it's going to take, and we live in a microwave mentality where everybody wants like 90 seconds, and it needs to come right now, or I don't want it anymore. So what other stories you have like that?
And that's a really good point, because I think that's another reason why people feel like a failure if they don't achieve their goal in the timeline they've laid out.
Right.
I've achieved a lot of things in my life, but there are also goals that I did not achieve by the deadline, I'd say.
Right.
But then I had to go back to plan, do, review.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, okay, here's the goal. I didn't quite get to it. What do I need to adjust? So I did achieve those goals, but it just took longer, right? Because there were some things that in my business plan, they were not working the way I wanted them to.
And things happen that we don't know. We have
Absolutely.
no control over other things that happen, right?
And there are goals that I have never achieved. sometimes when you let your dreams, go haywire, if you will.
And that's a good thing, because that means you're thinking high enough.
That's
right?
okay. I mean, it's not like you're not a failure if you don't reach your goal in the timeline, but without having them at all.
Exactly.
You're going to be one of the masses that are working paycheck to paycheck and suffering from the syndrome of too much month left at the end of the money, right? That so many people do. But yeah, I do want to tell you another story because, as I said before, it's not all about money, right? So here I am sitting in my beautiful house, having my BMW in the garage, right? So all I really needed was a relationship, right? At the time I'd been single for, 10, 12 years or something like that. And I thought, well, now would be a good time, So I actually took out my journal and sat down, and in minute detail, I described the woman that I wanted to attract, like her personality and, the interaction with her and I, and so on and so forth, right? And a number of years after I had actually put this in my journal, I met a woman, and we started dating, and it went really, really well, and I think we had dated for like 6 years, and we decided to get married, right?
Okay.
So she's originally from Philadelphia, so her family, we decided to do this in Maui. So her family, they're flying to Maui. My family from Denmark, my mom and dad, they came all the way over from Copenhagen, and we had a great get together, right?
Oh, I can imagine. In Maui.
Oh yeah. So we got married on the beach, and it was beautiful, and everybody got along. We had a good time. And then at the dinner that night, after everything was over and done with, I pulled out my journal.
No way.
And I read my description to the whole family of the woman that I wanted to attract.
Wow.
And you could have heard a pin drop in that room. Every single one of them sat with their mouth open, and they were like, that's her. Like, how did you do that? Right? So there is magic and power in what we're talking about here. I encourage you to take the time to do the same, whether it's relationships, your health, your financial success, or whatever it might be.
And that is so powerful that you mentioned. And you've been married now how long?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that, right? It's for
approximately.
This is our 7th year. Yeah.
One of the things that is very interesting to me is relationships. It is a huge part. I mean, there's 100 million singles in the U.S.
Wow.
100 million people are single in the U.S., right? So, I'm single myself, so I need to actually rewrite my definition of my ideal partnership. But one of the things that I learned is that so many people are complaining about the last relationships they had. Here is like, most women here in Vegas, they think they cannot meet a good man, right? And I'm going like, where are you looking for people? There's a lot of really good men, and the guys are the same way, right? And then when you find out where guys try to meet women, and so of course you're going to be complaining about who you're meeting. So remember that every single thought is creative. So if you're complaining about the last relationship you have, guess what you're creating? An anchor, right? So we have more stories with Kim. I have a couple of good questions to ask you. So you're going to come back. You're in manifesting your dreams. You're going to come back because we want you to get inspired so you can make a decision. You can define what you want. Then you can take action and you can manifest your dreams. We'll be right back.
Social Media Shows is looking for independent unsigned artists to show off to the world for a brand new show. So if you have a video ready to show, email us right now at darkmusictelevision@gmail.com. The video must be a quality of MP4, and we are accepting all genres: R&B, hip-hop, soul, blues, pop, country, rock, every and all types. So join us now and let us bring the world to you.
And you are back with us, Manifesting Your Dreams with Pablo Miguel. We're here in Las Vegas with Kim Simsby. We're having a great time, a lot of great stories. And we're talking about imagination. And we want to stimulate you so you open your mind. Imagine things that maybe you never thought about before, right? I was talking to a good friend of mine yesterday who was looking for a property to invest. And then she showed it to me and she said, this is a $5 million property. And it was like way more that she used to think, and it was an incredible story. You hear about it another episode. But we were talking with Kim about some of the things he's been able to manifest. If you haven't seen the previous segment, how he manifested his dream car, how he manifested the dream girl that he's still happily married and travel around the world with. So he's somebody that had taken the principles in this book, those 17 principles that Napoleon Hill identified, and put them to practice over decades now, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that as you were manifesting all these dreams that you had, you went through challenges, right?
No.
You went through but you know what? It's kind of funny because people watched The Secret a few years ago,
Yeah.
and they think all you have to do to get your dream life is sit down for 5 minutes every morning, put your order on the universe, and then go and drink a Coca-Cola, and things are going to show up at your door, right? Or that they're going to set a goal, they're going to take some action, and everybody's going to say yes, right? And we know that's not the case. So what made you special? How come you are able to manifest all your things, and you had a strategy to overcome obstacles? So when they run into obstacles, because we know they will, they could be a little bit better prepared. What can you share about that?
Absolutely. You know, one of my favorite quotes, and I don't even remember who it's by, to be honest with you, is that the definition of a pro is somebody who is faced with the same problems, challenges, and obstacles that everybody else is, yet they get the job done and they make it look easy, right? When you look at successful people, whether they're paraded across the stage at a business function or whatever it might be, right?
Athletes.
Yeah, it could be athletes. You're sitting there going like, oh my gosh, I wish that was me, right? But a lot of times people would not have the inner resolve, the inner power to go through some of those challenges. Oh, we all have them, but you know, a lot of times people just kind of throw in the towel, right? Where others, they will power through them. And I've certainly had a number of those in my life. I mean, some of it has been financial ups and downs. I actually, amongst my peers or my sphere of influence, my network, I know a lot of people that are very successful, but I can't think of one of them that you would look at today and by most people's standards you were like, they got an incredible lifestyle. I can't think of one of them that at some point in their life did not have serious challenges, you know. And some of them it might have been financial challenges, some of them it might have been health challenges or whatever it was. But and I don't know what people's spiritual beliefs are, but God seems to have a sense of humor, doesn't he? I mean, it's like...
Yeah, sometimes I'm not laughing, right? But
whenever,
funny later on, right?
Whenever we think we really figured it out, right, then he kind of throws us a curveball, and
yes.
you're going to have to figure it out. And let me just tell you kind of the short Reader's Digest version of a rather long story as to how I really made that decision to follow a success pattern like Think and Grow Rich. And it certainly is not the only
absolutely.
thing that, I've studied a lot of this. And it's, as I said in one of our previous segments, I just made a decision early on to listen to people that had achieved what I wanted to achieve and not listen to people that kept on telling me it can't be done, because they were all broke, right? They hadn't done it. And when I first immigrated from my native Copenhagen, Denmark, I moved here to the U.S. at the ripe old age of 25 years old. And I had worked for a few years in corporate marketing and management with a Fortune 500 and a Fortune 100 company back in Europe. These are both massive, massive global companies. And I got this idea to move to the U.S. and literally just packed my bags and went, right? And I was married at the time. My wife was American, and she got homesick, so that's basically what spurred it on.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I remember that I arrived here and started looking for a job. We were living with her mom at the time. And I would be sending out resumes and, trying to get creative and get in front of people and try to network or whatever. I spoke with a much thicker accent back then.
You had an accent?
than I have now. And it was very difficult to find, because even though I had a degree in marketing, I'd worked for these companies, Southern California, who cares about a Danish dude with a degree that you had 100 people standing in line here, right?
Wow.
So it was very difficult for me. And I ended up registering with Manpower, the temp agency.
Oh, yeah. My mother worked for Manpower in Argentina.
Oh, no
in
kidding.
Buenos Aires many years ago.
I mean, I remember this as if it was yesterday. And they called me up one day and they said, they had a job for me. And it was like some kind of a driver position or whatever. And I was supposed to show up at this particular office, and I didn't need to wear a suit and a tie, but in their words, you had to be clean cut. Right?
Clean cut, okay, yes.
So I'm showing up at this facility, and I'm walking in, and it looked almost like a warehouse, and I'm like, hello, I couldn't really find anybody. And this guy walks over. I'm not kidding. I mean, this is many years ago, so I may be exaggerating a little bit, but he looked like he was at least 7 feet tall, right? And in a tank top, and comes over there, and he's kind of looking at me. Who are you, right? And I'm like, well, I was told to, report here for this driver's position. And he says, I don't know about a driver's position. He says, you can start right over there. And it was like a manufacturing plant where they were putting these, dividers for open office spaces, for cubicles.
Like the cubicles.
Yeah.
Like the cubicle. Okay.
And I'm not knocking that kind of job, but it just did something to me, my psyche, right? I was like, there is no way. I'm going to figure this deal out, right?
I think we all been there, right? When we got into a job and I said, I don't want to stay. I want to get my first paycheck and I need a way out really quick, right?
Yeah. So this was before the cell phones and all this. I went over to a payphone in the corner, called my wife at the time, told her to come pick me up. And needless to say, she was not a happy camper, right? We were as close to broke as you can get. And at that time, I had just been introduced to a direct marketing opportunity, which for me was almost like a foreign language. I had never been in sales before. I'd been in marketing, but it's two completely different things.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I was more on the administrative and the creative side of things.
Ideas, not so much on the
exactly
knocking down the pavement type of thing, right?
Right. But I had been introduced to this concept with a health and wellness company, which I actually thought was really exciting, right? I just didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
So I literally, because the people that had introduced me to it, they say, well, make a list of everybody that you know. Well, they were all in Europe. I didn't know anybody here.
You didn't know anybody here, right?
So I literally took out the phone book. And I just started calling. I would call on chiropractors, and I mean, however I could get creative.
By the way, if you don't know what a phone book is, go to Wikipedia and look it up.
Yeah, again, I'm dating myself here, right? My point is that one of my greatest mentors, Mr. Jim Rohn, he says that there are times in your life where you come to that fork in the road, right? where you got to make that decision. Do I or don't I? Where you draw that line in the sand and say, no more, right? And that moment was the moment for me where I basically looked myself in the mirror and I said, never, ever again am I going to let somebody else dictate my income. And ever since I walked out of that facility, I never got a paycheck, right? I have never collected a paycheck in over 30 years that I've lived in this country.
Wow.
I have what I call a 1099 mentality versus a W-2 mentality. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do if that's what makes people feel more comfortable. But I knew that I wanted to be in control of my own circumstances. And that was kind of the defining moment that spurred that on. And it's not like everything has been rosy since then.
Absolutely.
I've had ups and downs. There have been challenges.
Absolutely.
I remember I've gone out on appointments, and the car I was driving, I parked it way down the street because you don't want to see anybody when you're driving.
You did the same thing I done? No way.
Been there, done that, right?
You walked 2 blocks so you don't see the car.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned a little earlier the plan, do, review the process, and maybe some of our viewers never heard that before.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge determinant of some of your success. Could you explain that process or how do you do it?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. And that is another huge key to goal setting, right? You create your plan, you start with the end in mind, this is what I want to accomplish, right? And then this is how I'm going to do that. And usually you have some people that will guide you a little bit, right? And it can be, let's just keep it on business for now, right? I'm going to make X number of contacts per day or whatever your strategy may be. And nowadays it may include that I'm going to spend so much time on social media,
That's right.
Whatever it is. I mean, times have changed, technology has changed, but I'm telling you the basic principles of success, they haven't changed one bit. It's exactly the same as it was when I started.
It's
right?
kind of like gravity, right? Some of those
Totally.
things that this is the way the world operates,
Totally.
right? Yeah.
And what's interesting is people like myself that have had it and lost it and rebuilt it. I've done that a few times. It's almost like getting on a bike. Once you've tried it, you know what you're doing. And yes, it takes hard work, but you have a choice. You can either stay down or you can keep going, right? So you create your plan, you create your strategy, plan,
take
then
action.
You actually take action, you go out and do it. And then you sit and you review. Like I said, sometimes I didn't achieve the goals in the timeline that I had anticipated, right? So now you can sit and you can adjust it. But if you don't have a goal and a strategy to start with, it's like the blind leading the blind, right? I thought I was going to make $10,000 this week, but it didn't happen, so the opportunity didn't work. No, your strategy failed.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it was Henry Ford that said, it's not that you fail, your plan failed, so you need a new plan, right?
Absolutely.
So you could say okay, what went great, right? You took action, you look at it. What did I do that went great, right? What was good about it? Because maybe we didn't get the goal, but we did accomplish something.
Absolutely.
And we don't give ourselves enough credit, right?
And a great time for me to do that is I do it on a weekly basis on Sunday night.
Okay.
I evaluate what happened that week.
Okay.
I do it every 90 days, every quarter.
Okay.
Where are we at? And then I do it once a year, like most people, between Christmas and New Year's. You sit and you take inventory of the year that passed.
What happened?
What did we do? What did we achieve? What do we need to adjust going into next year? And this is not rocket science, you guys. Any successful company, not just person,
Exactly.
they do the same thing.
They do the same
They
thing.
call it forecast, right?
Exactly. But see, success leaves clues. So I hope you're paying attention and I hope you're taking notes. We're going to be right back. We're getting a lot of great ideas from Kim Simsby, from Copenhagen, Denmark, via Carlsbad, California. You're here in Manifesting Your Dreams. If you just join us, don't go anywhere because the best is saved for last, right? We'll be right back.
Hello, fabulous girls and boys. I'd like to invite you guys to watch my show on 7 o'clock till 8 on Mondays. It's called The Fab Life with JC. And my show is about my expressive love for the fashion industry, anything under the fashion planet, designers, models, fashion shows, events. And it's also my love for my sci-fi, fantasy, horror flicks, and pop culture and music. So be there. Chowder.
And there you are. You came back. Oh my God, you're going to get the best part right now. You're here in Manifesting Your Dreams with Pablo Miguel. We're talking about the principle of imagination, one of the 17 principles. You want to make sure you apply in any dream you like to manifest, whether you like to change your zip code, whether you like to change your occupation, you like to provide something better for your family, or manifest the right relationship, kind of like Kim was sharing. And we're here with Kim Simsby. Kim is actually one of the best trainers I have ever met. And a couple of decades ago, he was actually my original mentor in business. So I'm very, very grateful and excited. We have a chance to share with you some of the principles he used to manifest his dreams. So as you were, you mentioned that as you were building your business or some of your goals, you went through challenges, and you say something very interesting, that every single successful person you know have gone through a lot of challenges, but somehow they made it look easy.
That's right.
They got it done anyway, but they made it look easy. And when people met you, probably they think you're lucky or, you know, whatever, because things work out for you. But I will invite you to consider that overcoming challenges is pretty much a requirement, right?
Absolutely.
For success. So don't think things are going to go your way very easily, because you will very likely encounter challenges. And I think that's what makes the difference between people that actually manifest their dreams and the ones that have a story, right? Or an excuse. So you talk about planning, how you do it on a weekly basis, set up your outcome, then doing the work, you know, what a concept.
Yeah.
Right? And then once a week, you're disciplined enough to actually review the week, count your wins and your victories, and then see what you can do better the next week. You do it every 90 days, and you do it once a year. So that's a blueprint that anybody could follow, you know, because it really doesn't take that much time, but you need to go and do it. So I've been very impressed. The business that you've been able to build over the last 2 or 3 years, you know, from what I heard, is one of the fastest growing businesses in the whole company, nationwide. So the question is, because when I look at different businesses, different opportunities and so forth, everybody has an idea, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, I have an idea. And the money is not in the idea, as we know, it's in the execution. Absolutely. Right? So other people probably had the same idea, probably had the same goal that you had, but then when you look 3 years later, right, one actually made it big time, and others, maybe they quit, or maybe they only did 10%, 20%. You mentioned the 80-20 rule. Right. So why don't you share maybe your mindset as you manifested a multi-million-dollar business, and maybe a couple of strategies that you think that make the big difference for you, so then maybe we can inspire some people to do something similar.
Sure. Thanks, Pablo. I'll be happy to. I think probably one of my greatest strengths is when I make a decision, I have the ability to focus 110%. I think the mistake that I see a lot of people make when they start any kind of project, it's kind of like they stick a toe in the water. And
they go with the flow.
That's right.
I go with the flow. I go like, oh my God, you're not going to get too far.
Absolutely. Their attitude is kind of like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. and my attitude is, it's kind of like the old Star Wars movie, right? Remember the Yoda scene, right?
Yeah.
Where he's trying to pull the spaceship out of the swamp, right?
Yes,
yes. And Yoda says to Luke Skywalker, you know, pull this out. And he says, I'll give it a try. I'm paraphrasing here, right?
Yes, I'm trying.
And Yoda says, Master Luke, there is no try. Either you do or you do not.
Either you do or you do not.
Yeah, and people have all, I mean, that quote has been all over social media, so there's nothing new.
But you're applying it, which is a big difference, right?
I have always applied that principle when I've started a business. So I always take quite a bit of time to research. If I'm looking at a new project or a new opportunity or something like that, I think the mistake a lot of people make is they get really excited and they jump in with both feet, but they, just as fast they get out, right? Because they haven't really taken the time to look at, okay, is this for me? It's not a matter of how many people are making a lot of money.
That's right.
Does this fit my personality? Is this something that I can do? Is this something that I believe in? Because money will only motivate you for so long.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There's got to be something else that drives you. So that's number one, is I've always taken quite a bit of time to look at, do I want to do this? And then when I make the decision to go, there's no looking back. It's not, and even when there are challenges, and there have been,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
there have been many, and it's not like everything that I've done has been successful. I've had some things that it just didn't pan out, and I didn't have a choice. I had to abandon it. Right. But I've also had a number of what I call home runs over the years, and the reason for those is what we're discussing here right now. I always took the time to research. When I made a decision, I went all out. There's no looking back, and the last piece of it is I always work with urgency. When I launch a new business, it is 90 days, 120 days, 6 months of all-out massive action. I mean, it's like, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, so I can't go 18 hours a day like I used to. But it's like I said, there's no looking back. It's like it's from morning till late night. You're following your plan. You're making your contacts or whatever it is that your project requires. And then, like I said, every week, then I kind of adjust it and look at what it is. So the mindset is it right for me? If it is, let's go. And if we're going, then we're going all out.
All the way. You're going all the way.
It's not, hey, I'm going to talk to 2 people today and then I'll talk to 1 tomorrow. No. What can we fit in? 30 or 40 today and 30 or 40 tomorrow, or whatever it is, And I think those are probably the most important reasons that I've been able to do this, not once or twice, but several times over.
That is so powerful that you mentioned that, because I'm thinking as you describing that, and I'm thinking about, like, if you ever seen Mark Zuckerberg's movie, The Social Network.
Yep.
If you've seen Ray Kroc's story, I mean, anybody that has been super successful, whether it's in business, athletes, right, and even musicians, right, they actually did exactly what you're just describing. It was like, I'm gonna make this happen. It's not like, let me check it out. It's this, I'm gonna make this happen. But you said something very important, that people don't do the research.
Yeah.
They get excited, they think it's a good idea, and then they have to quit because they're doing the wrong thing. So you take your time to do your research, and then you stop. You don't let the analysis of paralysis, right, keep you in constant investigation mode. You take your time, you make a decision, then you go for it, and you're gonna make it happen. You're gonna solve any problem that comes your way. And the urgency also is very popular, because I believe we live in the age of distraction.
Absolutely.
I don't think ever in the history of mankind people have been more distracted than nowadays, right?
Right.
And we're giving away our power by setting up our phone, sometimes by default,
Right.
that every single notification is going to stop us, and you need to stop that if you want to be successful.
Right.
Because you can't be checking in everybody's messages on Facebook and build a business at the same time.
Right, and
Right?
I'm glad you bring that up, because there is what seems to have become a very popular phrase or statement, and that is the importance of multiple sources of income. And while I am a firm believer in that, I think a lot of people, they misunderstand that term. I personally have never seen anybody that successfully has built multiple sources of income simultaneously.
At the same time, me neither.
Right?
Exactly.
What I've seen is people, they build a very successful business, and they have gotten it to the point where it's either running almost on autopilot, or they have very little involvement with it. And then they may go over here and they get involved with real estate investment, or whatever it is that rocks their boat, right? And they will diversify and get involved with other things. That, absolutely, that makes total sense. So you don't have all your eggs in one basket. But this nonsense that I hear over and over and over again of people that are trying to build 2, 3, or 4 businesses at the same time, and they're failing in all of them, right?
Yeah, I call it a multiple source of distraction.
Absolutely.
Or a multiple source of outcome, right? Because in every business, you need to invest some money, and you need to invest your time and energy.
Yeah.
So how could you have 2 or 3 at the same time? And you know what I hear a lot is they say, oh, but they're not conflicting with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, but they're not conflicting with each other. And I said, well, how many hours do you have, right?
They're only conflicting with your energy.
They're only conflicting with, you only have so many hours. So if you put 2 hours on this one, those are 2 hours you're not putting over there.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful.
And if you understand the law of attraction, which I know you do, and maybe that's a topic for another time, there is no way that you're going to attract the people that you need to build a successful business if you're scattered.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Absolutely. So urgency is another key factor, because like you said, so many times people, they say, well, I'm going to go for it, right? But they don't have the urgency. And I learned this many years ago. Somebody shared with me, they said, there's two ways to build a business: fast and easy, or slow and painful.
That's right.
Right? In other words, when it's slow, it's actually painful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But when you do it fast, what you do is you compress the activity level,
Absolutely.
right? Then magic starts happening.
Yeah.
So in other words, what is the like Jim Rohn talks about the law of averages?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? The law of averages, you start working in your favor when you have urgency and you take more
Yeah.
action in a compressed period of time. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely. And you know, momentum is a very elusive thing. It's like when you don't have it, it's difficult to create, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort. It's the age-old thing of, you know, when a jumbo jet takes off the runway, it uses 99% of its power getting off the
At the
ground.
beginning, exactly.
And once it's in the air, it's basically coasting,
Yes.
right? Well, the challenge is the 80%ers, they want to be coasting from day one.
It doesn't work like that.
And that's
right?
why they never get it off the ground.
Yeah.
So that is very, very important for sure.
Yeah, I like it when people say, I like to have my own business so I can wake up whenever I want. I said, well, you gotta wake up whenever you want after you build the business,
That's right.
not before, right?
That's right.
So if people want to contact you, how they can get to know you, or how they can reach you, or any last advice you have for people?
I mean, you can look me up on Facebook, Kim Simsby, and
And you can read his name right here.
yeah, and that's usually the best way to just reach out to me, send me a message, and if there's anything I can do to assist you, let me know.
And if Denmark moves to the next stage, you celebrate with him. If Uruguay moves to the next stage, you celebrate with me. So thank you, Kim, for being here today. It's been a blast. I hope you took notes. I hope you start taking action. I hope you start reviewing your action, because we want to interview you when you start manifesting your dreams. So we'll see you next week. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Pablo.
It's been fantastic. Thank you very much. Go and make it happen.